Let's think back to what we've been learning over the last few days. Pause the video for a moment and think about how you would answer the questions on screen. Remember that when you get questions like this where I put 4 terms in parentheses, your job is to identify which term does not belong and then identify the pattern that fits all of the rest. Pause it now and think of how you'd explain the answers. The correct answers are on screen. With number 2, we need to recognize that Hinduism doesn't belong. All of these are religions, but Hinduism is polytheistic, whereas all of the rest are monotheistic. And being able to identify that really precise pattern is what I'm actually looking most of all with in these questions. I want to see that you can do more than just give me definitions. I want to see that you can look for similarities and differences and threads that move across multiple angles. Number 3, we should recognize is not a scripture. It is instead a secondary source. Number 4, we've been talking about HM&T as our reasons to learn about religion. Look back for a moment at handout number 3. This is the encyclopedia entry on Muhammad's life that we have been marking up over the past few days. Think about the pattern to our markings. I didn't have us underline, dotted, underline, and highlight just to try and make it pretty. We were attempting to distinguish between the different types of information that we were drawing attention to. So think about how you would group those pieces together. Here's a hint. You can match them up to this word bank on screen. The events in the world were the underlining pieces. So this is looking at like what's happening in Mecca and how do the ruling families respond to Muhammad. The events in Muhammad's specific life, like him starting to preach or having the angel Gabriel appear to him as the Muslims believe, those are in highlights. The dotted underlines are sort of the results of these events, how history and beliefs are influenced by what was taking place. And that pattern is going to be something that we are really going to focus on. We're going to consider how religion and history are interconnected with both acting as cause and effect. That it's a cycle more than it's just a one-way force. So if this is an event in Muhammad's life, think in your head, how would that have affected Islam? Pause the video a moment to think. Here's a hint. These are 2 of the effects. Pause the video again to think about how you would fill in the blanks. This is what I was thinking. Both of those are major results that help to contribute to the start of Islam and the types of ideas that are included within it. And both are the result of these kind of ordinary events taking place in Muhammad's life. Here's another example. Pause the video and take a few seconds to think about the effects of him noticing these issues in the world around him. Pause the video again and think about what would be in the blanks. What we should notice is there's a clear and direct connection between the problems that he is encountering in the world around him and the beliefs that he is preaching and teaching about and including in the Quran. We should also notice that these events in his life and the world around him shape the beliefs of Islam. Then those beliefs, once they become established, influence people's culture and thinking and behaviors, which have an effect on history. And so it is this very cyclical process where the 2 pieces are so closely entwined that you cannot study one without the other. Before we start reading it, though, I had students think a little bit about how we are active readers that should be thinking before, during, and after reading. And that before stage is really critical. This is where you're supposed to scan through some of the text features, look closely at the heading and the citation, reflect a little bit on what you already know, maybe even do a little bit of research on your source so you're getting a sense about it. And it's really important for you to be able to do these pieces so that you're building that knowledge into your schema and that you have a sense of sort of where you're coming from and where you're going. That you're not just along for the ride, one paragraph at a time. And so what I'm having the students do, and you can maybe look closely on your screen to kind of see these pieces here. It's a mental strategy. It's not supposed to be something that like you're always going to do on a worksheet, but it's these 4 P's that should be easy to remember. We preview, we predict, we look at prior knowledge, we look at purpose. And if you're going through that little mental checklist, it's going to help you just think about some key things when you're first glancing at a reading. And typically we do that by like looking at the citation and the headings and the title. And so when I break this text apart, I might have noticed that our publisher is this company called Knopf. And maybe you don't know anything about them, and so that's where you like look up that company. And what you'll find is they are one of the oldest and largest publishing companies in the United States. They're considered very high-end. They're considered very respectable. And so they are only going to be publishing authors who are top-notch. They're not desperately trying to make money taking chances on unknown people. They are taking proven people who are strong writers with good topics and credible research. And so even if you're not familiar with the actual author, if you know this publisher and you see that's who's making the book, you can kind of lean and give it to the benefit of trust. The preview on this one should have been pretty easy. It's harder for you because you don't have the reading in front of you, but basically there's 3 headings that kind of name the topics, and those are going to be the 3 things that I would expect to learn about. And I kind of connect that to some of my lessons that we've gotten so far. And then I think a little bit about like, okay, given everything we've seen, is this supposed to be persuade, inform, entertain, or express? And I think this one's pretty clearly meant to inform. It's coming from this credible nonfiction publisher. It's got these ideas about like history and parts and influence. They're trying to give me the facts of the Quran. It's not trying to make an argument that we should go out and read it. It's not telling a narrative story to entertain me. And so once I know that purpose, it kind of shapes the way that I'm going to read it.